Hello everyone, I'm back to make my first video for quite a while, and today it's going to be more of a spiritual subject rather than a philosophical one, and it concerns a saying attributed to Jesus, and from now on I'm just going to say what Jesus said, because who knows who really said it, but anyway. He said that if your enemy strikes you on the cheek, you should turn the other cheek, or something to that effect. And this has confused me for a long time, because I found a lot of wisdom in what Jesus said, but this seems very odd, and yet I feel like there is some wisdom in it. And to be honest, I've been probably thinking about this phrase for 40 years. And I think I finally have made some kind of breakthrough in understanding it. And really the key to it is the word enemy, because it's the only complex concept in the whole phrase, really. Turn the other cheek. It's a fairly clear metaphor. It doesn't mean literally, necessarily, it's only limited to where you get hit on the cheek and therefore turn the other cheek. Obviously it's meant to mean any kind of attack. Don't respond with vengeance, respond with opening yourself up to another attack. So, and this is bizarre, isn't it? I mean, somebody attacks you. This seems to be saying somebody attacks you, and you should respond not by defending yourself, not by attacking them, which is often the best form of defence, as we know, but you should respond by opening yourself to another attack from someone who's proven themselves to be unreliable already. And so, if it means that, it would be insane. And I often personally think about the Second World War, where the Nazis attacked Europe, most of Europe, and including Britain, where I come from. And what would have happened if Britain had reacted in that way? Had just said, okay, you've attacked us, we're going to do what Jesus seems to be saying here, and we're going to allow you to invade our country, rather than try to fight. It's conceivable that if that had happened, America would have never had an opportunity to use Britain as a way to re-invade Western Europe. The Nazis would have not had to watch their back at all, and would have been able to concentrate on fighting Russia. And as it was, even though they were having to defend Western Europe from from Britain and America to some later, they were still able to almost defeat the Russians, and conceivably they would have defeated them without having that extra burden of having to defend Western Europe. And then they would have controlled all of Europe, all of Russia. They would have been by far the most powerful nation on earth. And it might not have been long before they controlled the whole world. So Hitler's conception, perhaps, of taking over the world wasn't so mad. And they came pretty close to it, even with Britain continuing to fight. So, how does that make any sense? Now, of course, conceivably, if Britain had made a deal, perhaps, and the Nazis might well have made a truce with Britain, perhaps the Nazis would have been different. We can't know. It's a counterfactual. We can't know what would have happened, but we do know what did happen. And so it really doesn't make a lot of sense, that interpretation of what Jesus is saying. And as I say, the only really controversial and interesting word in that whole phrase is enemy. So what is an enemy? I don't know about you, but ever since I've been at 11 or 12, I haven't really had people in my life, my ordinary daily life, who I would call an enemy. There are people who dislike me. There are people who have attacked me. There are people who I dislike and who I've attacked. And but none of them I would call an enemy. I almost feel like it would be dignifying such people often to call them an enemy. You know, it's almost like an honorary term. You know, it would give them way too much importance. It would be like, you know, calling a barking dog that's annoying you an enemy. It's just, you know, it's just a dog. It's just an idiot, or someone who winds you up the wrong way, or someone who's maybe jealous, or, you know, normally you can see that there's some kind of psychological issue that people have, or something like that, and you know, it's hard to really dignify them with the word enemy. So enemy is quite a significant thing to call someone else, and not just to call them, because there's a difference between just attributing a label to something and really feeling in your heart this thing. And if we think back to being children, you know, when there was really somebody perhaps we might call our enemy, and we almost love to hate them, maybe. That feeling, that intense, you know, it's hatred, it's demonisation of the other, and so on. So but I think Jesus is not talking about that childish conception of enemy. I think he's talking about, obviously, more of an adult one. But he's certainly not talking about just the label. just to, if we say this one is our enemy, he's talking about that inner feeling.